What's going on there, folks? Good morning, good afternoon. It's the Earthmaster here on this Wednesday, November 23rd, 2022. It's about 11:10 a.m. California time. Latest quake up here on the globe shows a 1.9 into the region of Alaska. Here is the latest. Well, let's see here. Kind of looks like we're under 24 hours here. Sometimes this Earthquake 3D globe likes to adjust itself for whatever reason, but there we go. Last 24 hours of earthquake activity. Seeing some further movement, crunching up again against the Java Trench and the Indonesia area. All seeing pretty much a good height and amount of earthquake activity overnight, including off the coast here of Japan. Getting some deeper movement quakes and some shallower earthquake activity there right off the coast of Japan. Let's go ahead and check out the latest activity here on the USGS map. As we look at the movement here, there's the activity off the coast of Japan here. Got one earthquake way into the just into the Japan Basin area. Looks like a 4.8 coming in super deep into one of these trenches here. It's going to be the Japan Trench or the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, way down here into the region at 246 kilometers deep for that 4.8. A little bit of adjustment further to the south, basically within minutes of each other. A 5.2, I should say, kicking up just off the coast of Japan into the Izu Trench. It looks like about 12 kilometers deep. Not a super deep earthquake whatsoever, but either way, a little bit of heightened activity kicking up here in the region today. Further up north, into the northern end of the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. This one coming in yesterday, it looks like. Not quite off that 24-hour threshold window. Let's see. And a lot of the activity missing here on the USGS map, of course, is a lot of threes. And I think we may have even seen a 4 or so in there. Let me double check. Some of these may be from yesterday because of the red colors on the rings here, indicating some older movement. A lot of this newer activity here around the Java Trench. There's quite a few 4s in here. Quite a few 4s actually in that mix, and I don't think the USGS is reporting them all. Looks like maybe one of them, 4.6 earlier this morning, into the Java Ridge, Java Trench area, 3 kilometers deep. Pretty shallow, really shallow earthquake there. I still think this region has some capability of producing a larger earthquake. Of course, historically we know that. But over the last 7 days, we've seen a lot of movement further up north where that 6.9 struck. And also some other activity, some 5s, of course, around the Indonesia area. Pretty damaging earthquake. Very shallow earthquake. Most people think 5.6 just going to be some moderate shaking. But for this area and the depth of the earthquake from that 5.6 on the 20th there of November, a couple days ago, was definitely damaging. So here's a little bit further activity stretching down towards the southern end of the trench. You might want to watch this today, considering the 4s kicking up here and quite a few clusters of 3s within this area. Let's see what else we got. Back east, Papua New Guinea area looks pretty quiet. Solomon Islands seen a 4.9. Of course, that region did see some activity here. Some pretty large activity, in fact. The magnitude of 7.0 coming in just a day or so ago, a couple days ago. Aftershock activity will continue there for a little while. Along the Kermadec Trench and the Tonga Trench area, got one 4.9 coming in. The latest quake here this morning at 553 kilometers deep. This other activity south here is some older movement from yesterday, so still watching this region potentially for some activity. On the EMSC model, looks like there's been a 3.4 in the North Island, New Zealand area right here. And also, looks like there's a pretty good cluster of some quakes. There's some newer quakes as well along the Kermadec Trench, it looks like. So a couple earthquakes missing off of this map as well from the USGS. That's kind of why I like to compare the two, right? EMSC, USGS, and any other agencies that monitor earthquakes all need to be compared. South Sandwich Trench has been seeing a little bit of activity today. Notice this 5.4 deep into the South Sandwich Trench. Look at that timestamp, 13:13:13. Goodness. 142 kilometers deep. That was subsequently followed up about 10 hours later by a surface quake much further upstream here along the subduction zone, and like literally right upstream from that 5.4, seen a 5.1. So South America region, a little hot spot of activity today, it looks like. Last one there was 4.5 underneath Bolivia. Super deep earthquake here, 532 kilometers deep for that area. There has been some other quakes here listed on the map, including a 4.5, a pretty shallow earthquake. So I'm not for sure. That one looks pretty recent. Looks like that just happened here within the last hour or so. Missing either that or let me bring up the EMSC here real quick. Stand by for just a second. Bring in EMSC map. See what we got for the, yeah, looks like there was just that, looks like a 4.6, the secondary earthquake just coming in here. The latest quake on the map, 10 kilometers deep. So definitely already some adjustment being seen there in the South America region following this deeper earthquake movement this morning time frame. A lot of this activity here near the Santiago, Chile area is from yesterday into the Puerto Rico region. Looks like a 3.7 coming in yesterday. Let's see what we got for latest activity here. Aside from our swarming region, not a whole lot of noticeable activity. Late last night and super early this morning, we've seen a little bit of movement off the coast here into the Middle America Trench, but nothing major happening there. Let's check on the globe here. Looks like we had a 4.1, a pretty recent earthquake here in this region. EMSC, let's see if the USGS reporting it. Looks like it, yeah, I believe that's an older one. So it looks like there's a newer quake happening here within this area just recently. All right, what do we got here for the states? Not a whole lot going on. Eastern portion of the country. Texas, Oklahoma. Looks like outside of Pecos, Texas, some further movement out there. Some 2s overnight. Oklahoma about the same. The western portion of the states there still showing some heightened earthquake activity, so I'm leaving up the earthquake watch here for the west coast for now, just due to continued movement. We've seen quite a bit of activity ramping up here into the Baja California region. Of course, we did see that 6.2. Seen some further aftershock activity as well in this area. And yesterday, we noticed a little bit of migration up here into the southern portion of Southern California here, down into the San Jacinto Fault Zone, also off the Imperial Fault, all showing a little bit of seismic activity increase with a couple 2s in that area. And also Ridgecrest area seen some further movement. But overall, the general seismic activity map here shows definitely some inward movement here across the portion of the Great Basin and also Utah area, all showing some heightened activity. Let's see what we got for any specific movement. Looks like Long Valley supervolcano outside of there has kind of kicked up as well. Nevada is the big one. That one's showing quite a bit of seismic activity here across the Mina, Nevada area, and also over here around Warm Springs. Seeing a pretty good cluster of earthquakes all over the place there in the depth department. Earthquakes ranging from anywhere at the surface down to 13 kilometers deep for that earthquake there, 2.0. So a little bit of something brewing out here in Nevada. And as always, it always tells a sign of some pressure out here against the plate boundary. Watching this area pretty closely. Into the Northern California area, one earthquake onto the Coast Range Fault Zone, the Bartlett Springs Fault, 1.5 at 2.4 kilometers deep. Into the Cascadia Zone. Now, this one was from yesterday, but I think we need to watch this region here around Northern California for potential quake activity. And the reason why I say that is because yesterday, Got pretty busy last night. Couldn't get a late update in. But yesterday we had 323 epicenters of tremor into the Northern California area. That's a pretty big uptick in numbers. And for one area, that's a pretty localized amount, high localized amount for this area. And of course, what that means here, as we're getting the slippage going on here, down dip, downstream here of this area of the subduction zone of the Cascadia, ultimately building up strain not only at the locked area, but putting strain up at the surface region. So we should see some type of activity kicking up here throughout Northern California today, whether it's some oddball earthquake activity, a couple twos. Right now, they're not really showing anything. So we'll keep an eye on that area pretty closely. I did check out the tremor map, or the Mount Rainier volcanic seismicity map this morning, and it looks like things are kind of mellowing out. Now, this activity you see overnight is some wind events, a pretty good amount of wind coming in up into the Washington, Oregon area, with a lot of rain and snow for them, but it's completely missing California. Literally, we are not looking good for rain. But as far as localized earthquake activity here at Mount Rainier, there's been a couple smaller microquakes. You can kind of decipher those signals, that signature of the earthquakes, very small ones, showing up compared to these other type of events. They're kind of flat, not as distinct looking. It kind of just looks a little odd. And if you can read these maps, that's kind of what you're looking for localized earthquake activity. And that's what we're seeing right here. But not a lot, just a little, very small microquake activity in that area. And it looks like there's a 0.6 south of Mount Rainier just within the last hour, 8.9 kilometers deep. Let's see, what else we got? Yellowstone National Park, the site I like to use a lot is this thing on.org/Yellowstone/Dathums.php is back online. It looks like they had some issues there with the DNS servers, but everything's back up and running. And of course, we appreciate this page a lot because it gives an overview here of Yellowstone National Park, the caldera in the black line here, Lake Yellowstone in the blue. And these are the situational positions of the seismographs across the area. You can always double check any one of these by going to the University of Utah and individually checking out all of these seismographs. But I like the way the layout is here, and that's why I've been using this site for quite a while. But earthquake activity, we're not really seeing a lot here. Stand by for just. Oh, there we go. I thought this said 122. I was like, no way, it's not November or January already. So over here, it looks like this is just kind of cut off a little bit. But this is a current data, and only a couple handful of small, very small microquakes across the area overnight. No major swarming noted at all across the region. Let's see what else we have here. Back out just a little bit. Alaska seeing some movement. Looks like outside of Anchorage again. Getting in on some swarming just off of this fault zone here, the Castle Mountain Fault. This area has seen a little bit of activity kicking up over the last, I'd say the last week or so. Actually, it's been maybe over the week. Let me double check here. We'll go last 30 days of activity. Hopefully it doesn't blow up my computer. As you can see, Alaska sees a lot of earthquakes, right? But we look for these little swarms, these little movements of clusters of quakes, and that's just too many of them. Bring this down a little bit. It looks like it's within that area that we've seen some further movement last week, and that's definitely a good indicator of some northward pressure movement here off the subduction zone, the Aleutian Trench, shooting its way up into the land. Kind of see that arc over time. General plate movement there showing the millions of years that it takes supposedly to create this type of feature on the land there, on the topography of the map. Earthquake activity on the increase for sure. Let me see what we got. Looks like there's been a 4.1 yesterday, and then overnight, of course, quite a few microquakes and some other smaller quakes, 3.3 and a 2.7. And that is kind of stretching up around the Denali area as well. So again, watch this area closely. This movement here, this zone, the subduction zone. Pretty much, it seems like this has been kind of like the cutoff line. We've seen activity over here in this region recently. And of course around this volcano area, a lot of movement. But with the general plate movement here, kind of in this fashion, up against each other, this zone has not really seen any sufficient large-scale activity, or even moderate activity at that. So I think that's a zone we need to watch pretty closely with this continued movement up here outside of Anchorage. Drawing's not the best here, but still just kind of working with this little on-screen drawing, which is pretty cool. Kind of gives a little bit better visual instead of just using the arrow right here and kind of pointing stuff out. So I'll get better at that eventually. So watch that zone pretty closely. Onto the Big Island. One earthquake here within the last hour at Mauna Loa at the very summit. Very shallow earthquake. No major swarms kicking up. No major unusual activity. Let's go ahead and check out the seismograph station there and see what we got. Still sits at yellow. Whoops, that's Kilauea Volcano. Let's go over here to Mauna Loa here. Go check out this site for some local activity. And it looks like, man, goodness, I don't know why it does that. Looks like seismic activity here definitely on the decline. A couple earthquakes earlier this morning and overnight, but things look like they're calming down for now around the Mauna Loa area. Not quite as intense of a swarm that we've been seeing over the past couple months or so, since about the end of September of this year. So again, though, things can change in a blink of an eye. So just a heads up. See what else we got outside of the Turkey area. Or, well, actually within Turkey. Seen a 6.1 coming in last night. A little bit of aftershock activity in that region. Looks like a 4.5. EMSC model here showing definitely some other activity under the 4.5 threshold there. Some 2s and 3s it looks like. Some westward pressure activity kicking up in this area of the world as well. Looks like some 4s in the Mediterranean region and some 2s and 3s further up north. So that's kind of pointing towards a little bit of activity around the Italy area. That region has seen quite a bit of movement over the last, let's go, well, I know we had more activity than that. Let's go 30 days maybe. 5.6 and a 4.7, but there's definitely been a lot more activity there in the C region than what the USGS is showing for sure. But got to watch that today. Maybe seeing a little bit more moderate sized quake for this area, considering that westward pressure movement from last night's activity there in Turkey. All right, north here around the Arctic Circle. Got 5.1 around the Norwegian Sea. And some activity, of course, down on the South Sandwich Trench area. Let's go ahead and check out the solar weather department here real quick and see what we have for activity. Everything's green across the board for now. No major uptick in movement as far as activity goes. Solar flare activity has come to almost a complete halt. Just looks like maybe a little C flare here within the last few minutes. No major coronal holes facing us currently. There's a bunch of little bitty ones, little bitty coronal holes, and they're shown up here on the map. But nothing spectacular, nothing major, no noteworthy events headed our way. Looking at the sunspots currently here. We were watching 3149 and 3147. Let's see what they look like today. As they're kind of getting out of position here. Right now, if anything does pop off, it will still be geo-effective, Earth-directed, but not for long. These things are scooting along pretty quickly, and we'll be out of range here in the next day or so. A new sunspot kicking off here on the northeastern limb. But I think the best potential of seeing any type of flaring currently exists with this little level up here. All these other sunspots don't look, it doesn't look super set up here for any major flaring far as their magnetic field goes. Overall threat looks like 55% chance for a C flare, M flare around 15 and 1% or less for the X. And nope, I don't think there's any possibility of any proton events currently. And current conditions there shows pretty green, well, not pretty green, pretty calm in the greenery department. Really no chance of seeing any auroras up there. Current solar wind stream is pretty steady. There's a little bit of a density peak right here still floating around. Probably just some residual energy there from the unexpected, well, I should say expected coronal hole, which failed to arrive. But yeah, a little bit of density peaking right there. I don't know if that's an error or not, but we're not showing any type of increasing here on the speed or the temp. Looks like there was a blackout there for an extended amount of time. Not for sure exactly what that is. Showing up there across the real-time solar wind stream. It's a little on the odd side, I would say. Huh. All right. Well, I'm going to look into this and see what was going on here. Somebody sent me a picture earlier of the image of a sun. It looked a little on the odd side. I'm wondering if that could be exactly what that person sent me right here. A little blackout. But then again, sometimes we do see the data get blacked out here. It happens on occasion, but a little bit of a curiosity there. So I'm going to check into that. We'll be back a little bit later on, folks, with an update. Man, look at the Earth. A little bit too big. There we go. Bring it back down. And we'll be back a little bit later on tonight with a complete update. Till then, stay safe. Be prepared. And we'll chat you guys very soon.